Dr. Thompson, I've gotten confirmation that the live stream is working, so I'll hand the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. I'll call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. I'll start with reading policy 903. Public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. Thank you. Do we have any public comments?
Dr. Thompson, at this time, there are no public comment pertaining to the agenda. So we'll read the ones that have been submitted at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, sir. And let's start with revised cabinet job descriptions. And I'll turn that over to Ms. McHale.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. So today we bring to you 3 job descriptions for consideration. They're revised to reflect the alignment of responsibilities that's occurred since the 3 of us really were hired, and that predates us to 2014. In addition, there's some general cleanup that reflects direct reports and title changes, such as the assistant business manager to the director of finance. They are attached to the agenda meeting. Did you want to pull those up and go over those individually, or have you all had an opportunity to review?
I've had an opportunity to review, and I'm okay with the changes.
Okay, does anyone else on the board have any additional questions or?
I did review them, but of course I can't see them now with my Zoom screen open, and I can't figure out how to do it. So I just wanted to know whichever one was the first one on the list.
Director of HR?
Okay, so in there, I just was curious where you had you pulled these new descriptions from anywhere in particular, or is this something that you went through and kind of devised?
So we went through, each of us and Dr. Bolton went through the agenda, or I'm sorry, through the job descriptions line by line to make the changes to what we felt reflected our new responsibilities. Because again, when we were hired, that looked a little different, especially with the realignment of the assistant superintendents. Dr. Scheid's position was more curriculum when she was hired, and then there was an assistant superintendent, but now that they are both assistant superintendents in charge of elementary and secondary, the job responsibilities were significantly different. And for Sean and myself and Sherry Warrior as well, we all took on a little bit of different responsibilities.
And as the board knows, we had the opportunity with Dr. Scheid and Dr. Rabarchek to recently update their job descriptions as we were working on their contracts. The same is true for the other 3 board members. As Ms. McHale said, all 3 of these job descriptions were last visited in 2014, which is before any of these 3 people were in the positions. So these 3 cabinet members, their contracts are up at the end of the year. And so I thought it made some sense in terms of a rhythm of revisiting job descriptions to take a look at the job descriptions while we're looking at the contracts for the cabinet members. And so some significant changes, obviously from a job title standpoint. Ms. McHale is not any longer just the Director of Human Resources, but she also now is officially our Title IX coordinator, which we thought was important to put that into the job description as well as her reports. Dr. Durr's position, we wanted to signify the significance of adding the diversity work that is underneath her umbrella that would not have been in the job description. And so, like Ms. McHale said, it's a lot of the cleaning up in terms of what their current responsibilities are, as well as talking about some of the changes that have happened over the last 6 years.
I think one of the changes that I noticed that stood out was in the old HR description, it included the HR director actually going into classrooms to do, okay, but you took that out. I think that's okay, a good change.
Right. So now that we have, again, Dr. Scheid and Dr. Rabarchek, who are overseeing the elementary and secondary areas, they would be going into those classrooms and doing those observations or supervising the principals and administrators who are going into the classrooms and doing the observations.
Right, so those job descriptions in the old job descriptions are just no longer applicable, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Are there any other questions? Concerns?
No.
Okay. So we're
So
good to, go ahead.
That I was just going to ask the same thing. Are we good to move to the full board?
I am. Is everybody else good to move to the? Okay. All right. Next, we have a tenure recommendation for Megan Lankford.
Yeah, always happy to acknowledge a staff member for tenure. Megan is receiving tenure at the second semester due to a leave of absence for a half year. So rather, she would have been eligible in September of this year with the other tenure recommendations, but due to a leave of absence that took her out for a full semester, she is now eligible mid-year. So we'd like to acknowledge her for tenure.
Sounds good.
So we're all good to move that forward? Excellent, thank you. And thank Megan for us too, please.
Absolutely.
Recommendation to increase per diem substitute teacher rate is next on our agenda.
Yeah, so in an effort to be competitive with our surrounding districts in the county, we were looking at an increase in the per diem substitute rate as well as the building-based sub rate. And then we also have what we call like a short-term, long-term sub rate with our vendor. And they all go up according to the level of responsibility. So right now our per diem rate is at $100 per day. And we are now falling short of the other districts who have jumped their rate up to attract more substitutes at a time when they're just not signing up to go into the buildings. I do want to say that is coming back a little this second semester. We're starting to see more of an increase in the recruitment efforts of the vendor, ESS, and they are able to, provide a higher fill count right now, more so than they were at the beginning of the year, which is understandable with the reluctance of folks to get out there, in August and September. So what happened is the surrounding districts started to increase their rate, and we are now at the lower end of the per diem rate for substitutes, and we would like to increase that from $100 a day to $120 a day. For our building-based subs, they're the folks that are loyal to one building. They come in every day and report to that building. Presently, we have one in each elementary building and also in the middle schools. And at the high school, we have 3, but we have been trying to recruit more for the high school. We've been trying to recruit 4 additional to cover the high school. Going into the spring semester, this is extremely important because this is a time when we experience more absenteeism. Traditionally, I don't know how that's going to look with COVID. It's hard to pinpoint the numbers this year as we normally would. We could usually just go back a year or 2 and get a comparison, but that's not the case because last spring we weren't here. So, we're looking at data from 2 years ago, but if you take the average of last year and then from September forward this year, we're looking at approximately 400 substitutes per day. I'm sorry, per month.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, that's an awful lot.
That's a
Per
lot
month.
of, yeah.
So with the 3.5 months that we would have remaining in the school year, you're looking at about 400 substitutes per day. We feel that would average out to about $28,000. That is a doable cost because we do have a surplus right now in the substitute budget, again, because of the lack of substitutes. It's a double-edged sword, but
Yeah.
there is a surplus that would definitely cover the $28,000. And that's assuming 100% fill rate with that number of folks out every month, which I don't really anticipate, but again, that's the average. of the data that we can fill. So again, just to recap, we're looking at $100 to $120 for the per diem substitutes. For the building-based substitutes who are currently at 125, we're looking at moving them to 130. If you recall, the building-based substitute rate at the beginning of the year was 110, and we jumped it to 125, again, as a measure to attract people into that position, knowing that they will be reluctant to come into the buildings, and we may have an issue with the per diem substitute, so we wanted to have those folks secure. So that worked, and we've been keeping that rate a little bit higher, usually around $10. So we wanted to increase that to 130. And then for the long-term, short-term subs through the vendor, and we would increase that rate from 125 to 150. And those are your substitutes who are going to fill in on an emergency basis if there's a medical situation, which is almost always what it's for. If someone, breaks their leg or whatever, and they have to be out of the classroom immediately. It's not a leave that we could plan, that we could post for on our job board and hire through Penridge. It's someone that we need immediately. They're going to be doing lesson plans. They're going to be grading. So they have a higher level of responsibility. So that substitute has traditionally held a higher salary. So we're looking at moving that from 125 to 150. I do want to point out that that is not a very common occurrence. We do try to hire our own short-term and long-term substitutes whenever we can. And
Ms. McHale, can you, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you just clarify? So we're talking about 3 different types of substitute salary increases. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're going from 100 to 120 on
Yes.
the
Per diems.
per diems.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Someone calls out sick, we need to fill
Right.
that for the day.
Then 125 to 130 on the building-based substitutes,
Yes,
which was already increased. You said it was increased from 110 to 125.
it was.
When was the date of that?
I believe we increased
Approximately.
it in September, but I could get that information for you and send
Okay.
out an email to the board.
And then the final one is the emergency substitutes, which is an increase from 125 to 150.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to have everybody's feedback on this.
Well, I know that we are lower. That is a gripe among a lot of teachers that they have a hard time getting people to come in and sub in Penridge compared to some of the surrounding districts. I know, do we have numbers on like Souderton, Quakertown, CB around us that we can say how much they're paying their subs? Because are they using the same sub contracting with the same sub agency? Okay.
So Souderton employs their own substitutes, but Quakertown does use the same vendor. The IU uses the same vendor, Pennsbury, Palisades, Neshaminy. So all of those districts use the same sub vendor, and we did poll to see what their rates were, and we were low. We're on the low end.
I mean, like when we say on the low end, are we like significantly, are we like 20 under, 50 under, 100, what are we under?
Yeah, so we are 20 under right now from Quakertown because they have increased their rate.
Okay.
And this has been slowly happening for different districts since September.
Yeah, as Ms. McHale said, when we started the school year, we were right within the range of the county. But this has been a situation where subs have been so difficult that multiple school districts have raised their rates. That when we revisited it for second semester, we now were at the bottom of that list of people locally. So 120 will put us right there at that county average. We'll be above some, still be below a couple of them, but our neighbors will either be equal or above, and hopeful that we can recruit people that way. We're also looking at all other avenues of recruiting. Substitutes is one of the things we talk about on a regular basis. So we're calling out to people who we've interviewed who might have come in second for an interview to see whether they're willing to come in and serve as a sub because they showed themselves to be good candidates but didn't quite get over the hump as the number one. Looking, like Ms. McHale said, at some recruitment events. that we're doing through ESS to try to get more people that way. This is something, like she said, this would not require a budget increase, that our current budget from a sub standpoint, because we have not been able to fill all sub spaces, will be able to absorb these costs without any increase to the budget. And we'll revisit these numbers as we go into next year to kind of see what that looks like and what happens across the county as people get through, hopefully, the pandemic and we get back to
Right.
normal sub pool. We'll revisit what those numbers should be to make sure that we're staying competitive, but not overpaying based on what the rest of the county is.
Okay. Well, my experience is limited with a lot of feedback, but I have received some feedback similar to what Mrs. Walters was pointing out. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to weigh in on this during the committee meeting. Mr. Kraus, did you have something?
No, just I'm listening, and it's, you know, just kind of taking it in that it's we're in a kind of a bidding war with our neighbors, right? And we need to fill the spots.
Yeah,
That's at the end of the day, we need teachers to teach kids.
right. I agree.
That's
Mrs.
And-
Cullen?
Yeah, so I'm trying to do the math, forgive me, Dr. Bolton. It works out to be maybe $17 an hour at 120. And if we're requiring teachers with degrees, I think that's what we do, correct? In my day, you could substitute teach without your bachelor's, but I think that we have substitutes that all have them, don't we?
So you can substitute with a bachelor's with an emergency certification and going through the guest teacher program at the IU. So the IU does a really great job of putting all of the ESS emergency substitutes through the guest teacher program, and then they apply for an emergency cert. That's if you have a bachelor's degree in anything. And then, of course, you have certified teachers as well.
So
And
that was
your
just,
math was correct, Mrs. Cullen.
was
That-
my math.
Just over $17 an hour. Good
All
job.
right. So, I mean, I feel that, you know, if you're asking professionals to come in, you do have to pay a professional rate. And it should be something that's in line with the other places around our area, our school districts around our area. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, well, if everyone's okay with that, I will initiate an addendum for approval at the board meeting.
Yes,
And just
I think so.
one more before I leave, that Dr. Bolton pointed out that we are starting to have vendor events at the district. We have one coming up at the end of April, and they are going to be in-house in our boardroom. Of course, they'll keep within the limitation of how many folks we can have in that room, but they will have a recruiter on site, and they will be visiting in person with individuals that are interested in substituting. That's a great opportunity for us, because if someone is going to come to Penridge to attend the event, they usually remain loyal to Penridge, and they'll pick us over, you know, another school when they're in there picking their jobs off the board. So we're happy to have them back and welcome them back in March too. They usually do about 2 a month.
Oh, that's great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. There any more questions, comments?
yeah, I'm good.
I think we're all good to move that forward, Ms. McHale.
Thank you all. This is most appreciated.
Okay, great. And I think we are officially back to public comment.
Okay. And as I said, there were a couple public comments. I will apologize in advance if I get any names wrong. I'll do my best. The first one is from Christine Baticki. She's from Percy, and she asked if we would please share a timeline for the board's recommendation of a full return to the high school. And the second public comment that was submitted is from Michaela Jones, also of Percy. My name is Michaela Jones, and I am an 8th grade student at South Middle School. I have attended Penridge School since kindergarten. I am writing to you about the curriculum. While in elementary school and middle school, I have never had any assignments or learning opportunities about Black history. My schools did not acknowledge or highlight Black History Month, nor did they teach us about the conditions of African Americans to our country. I feel that my education at Penridge should include the history and contributions of African Americans and all other cultures that are represented in our country, not just Europeans. In response to Michaela first, it was sad when I read that, Michaela, earlier tonight. Completely agree with you that I'm sorry that your experience in Penridge has not included that level of diversity in terms of African Americans, and you said also other non-Europeans, as well as the celebration of Black History Month. The good news, Michaela, is I hope that at the end of this month, because today does start the beginning of Black History Month, and we do have plans across all 11 buildings to celebrate and educate around the contributions of African Americans in our country, as well as other significances. And so all of our buildings are going to be highlighting. You'll be able to see through our website and through our social media accounts, many activities that are going to happen. As we've stated before, our curriculum is currently going under an audit. And so our curriculum is being revised through a lens of diversity, so that the hope is, Michaela, that no other 8th grader will ever be able to write that public comment again in Penridge. So I'll follow up with Michaela personally, but just in case she's listening, I wanted to respond to that. In response to the first one from Ms. Batiki, we continue to look at all of the data, and our goal, as it has been from the very beginning, is to, as soon as it is safe and possible, to return, or at least provide the option of a full return at the high school level. So we have been in a good place for about 2-3 weeks now in the county and in Penridge, and numbers have started to go down. Obviously, with vaccines on the horizon, all of that is real positive information, and we'll provide an update as soon as possible regarding any plans in that area. And they are the public comments for tonight, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Our next Personnel Committee meeting is scheduled for March 1st, and we are adjourned.
Mrs. Walters, if you're okay to just move right into the curriculum.
Committee meeting, and there is no public comment pertaining to the agenda items, is there, Dr. Bolton?
Correct. Nothing has come in since I've read the last 2.
Okay, so we will get started. We have 4 textbooks this evening that we'll be discussing for review. The first one is AP Psychology with Mr. Vaburka.
Good evening, everyone.
I cannot screen share. Could I get permission to screen share so I could pull up the document?
Yes, I believe you can.
Okay.
All right, try now.
All righty. Okay. Do you see it?
Not yet. Thank you, Mrs. Walters.
Yes, that's the textbook.
Yeah, I'll be down awaiting all the textbook. Glad I picked them up before the snow came.
Okay. For some reason, let me try it again. That's screen share. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, very good. Okay, then I will bring it over back to Mr. Vaburka.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm here to present the textbook adoption for the AP Psychology course. And as most of you know, this is an 11th, 12th grade course, which is open to for students for an intro. It's basically an intro to psychology course that you would have at the college level. It's been a very popular course. Our current enrollment this year is 116 students. They do very well on the AP exam as well, and so it's a very popular course at the high school. The College Board recently updated their framework and the AP exam effective last fall of 2020. And so we also wanted to update our textbook in terms of approaching the curriculum in that course. So our current textbook is actually Myers Psychology for AP. We had actually purchased that textbook when we first started the course in 2012. It served us very well. And so we are actually looking at the 3rd edition of Myers Psychology for AP, which actually, and I believe on the front cover you had just shown, it actually reflects the current update of the College Board rewrite. So they're directly aligned. College Board actually puts out a list of recommended textbooks, and Myers Psychology for AP is on that list, as are the other ones that we also looked at. So Dr. Shai, if you just want to scroll down, I included some course goals from the College Board, and again, we're kind of tied to their their plan, their curriculum for this course, looking at the assessment piece as well. And then the estimated cost for this textbook would be $19,000, just over $19,000, and I'll go into the details of that in just a moment. And then, of course, we will be purchasing this for the 21-22 school year. So to purchase this summer for next school year. So our plan for the actual purchase would be to have purchase 30 copies of a textbook bundle, which would include an actual physical textbook as well as their digital text materials. Now that includes the online text as well as the ancillary materials that are available in the digital program. So we'd have 30 of those, just so we had 30 print textbooks we could have for a classroom set. And then we'd also purchase an additional 90 of the digital text. Because we have the one-to-one at the high school, it's very easy for us to give the students the digital license. So we have that for the remaining 90. So that gives us 120 licenses. And again, as the popularity increases of the course, that should cover us for next year. And then, of course, we can purchase additional ones through the social studies budget at the high school if needed. So you can see the two costs there, as well as the shipping cost for a total of just over $19,000 for that. In terms of selecting this textbook, having your textbook named after you was not one of the items on the rubric that we looked at, but it's definitely something to have. David Myers has been doing this for several years and has written some really, really good textbooks for this. So it's actually Myers Psychology for AP through DFW. And we also looked at two other ones from Cengage, Discovering Psychology, Introduction to Psychology, both from Cengage. On the attached rubrics, which you had seen through the packet that was given earlier, you can see that Myers Psychology scored significantly higher than the other two, just in terms of the curriculum instruction, the technology piece, and the assessment piece. And so we feel like this is the best text to move us forward with the AP Psychology course as we adopt it to the rewrite that had happened. Okay. And so I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Mr. Reverse, could you just, before we take any questions, could you walk us through a little bit in terms of what types of things are on the rubric that you're looking at, as well as who and how many people were on the committee reviewing? I think you said there were 3 textbooks that you reviewed.
Correct.
This one coming at this time. So all 4 textbooks tonight will have gone through the same process, but you're going first. So if you would just kind of talk a little bit what our process looks like so that people understand that it wasn't just the person's last name that selected this one for.
Right. It's not part of it. So essentially, Stephanie Nash is our AP Psychology teacher. She's the one that started the course several years ago and is still doing it now. She would review the textbooks originally and go through them in terms of, the correlation with the College Board curriculum and what she does instructionally in class. And then they were also reviewed by Tim Bush and Karen Furr, who had been filling in for Mike Dertuzis as the subject leaders at the high school. And then, of course, I would review them as well, looking over the rubrics and making sure that I agreed with the assessment of that those scores. The rubrics are set up as you've seen, as there are 3 overarching areas: curriculum instruction, assessment, and technology. And each one of those sections has multiple subheadings. And there is a score of a 0, 1, 2, or 3, meaning how much does that piece of curriculum or textbook correlate to what we're looking for. So the 1 is the low, the 2 is the medium, and the 3 is the high in terms of if we see evidence of that in the textbook. And again, there's the curriculum instruction area, the assessment area, and the technology piece. And that's mostly, again, most of your textbook companies are having those online resources as part of that robust programming. So you want the print textbook just for the classroom set, but the online materials are really where a lot of things can happen. And if you've looked at those online resources, you'll see it's set up to similar to a learning management system that we have, where you can really go through and provide assessments for students and track their progress and things like that. So this textbook provides all of those resources.
Mr.
If I could just
Rivers.
add
I'm
something.
sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead, Dr. Thompson.
I have a question about the 0 in line item 1 in curriculum and instruction. Can you elaborate on how it scored a 0?
That's for the PA standards that it doesn't have.
Right.
And is
The
that,
PA
I noticed that too. Is that just
Yeah.
because it's a college level textbook, so it doesn't need to,
That's part of it as well. It's not written for Pennsylvania specifically. There's not a Pennsylvania version of it, but essentially your Pennsylvania core standards are history, geography, economics, and history, geography, economics.
So not psychology.
Right, and it doesn't include the
Okay.
social sciences as part of that.
Okay,
So, right,
thank you.
that's
I
why
just
they
wanted to
report.
make sure that people understood why it received a 0.
Correct.
And now I have one question. In looking at this, our current text we've had since 2012, and it served us for the past 8 years. And I'm looking at a 6-year digital license. Is that a long enough time to allow? I mean, I don't have any feeling for what the normal rewrite schedule is on the AP exam. Is 6 years long enough, or are we going to get caught in a space where we have to get updated text?
Unfortunately, most of the textbook companies, a 6-year license is the standard that they provide to us. There's also 1-year licenses that we could do, but that is one of the downsides of the digital piece, because at least with print textbooks, you have something at the end of the 6 years, just in case the money's not there. So that's, one consideration that we have to look into. But 6 years is a typical standard one that most companies provide to us.
That was kind of my question too, is if the digital license is for 6 years and we've been keeping the books for 8, 9 years is what it's going to end up being, then you could purchase 1-year digital licenses is what you would do?
We could,
Okay.
yes.
And this might be off topic a little bit, but I was just wondering about AP courses in general, what has happened with the pandemic, what our kids, this, again, maybe a subject for another day, but how they were affected, how our kids ended up doing on the AP exams. Is the AP world changing at all in terms of schools and how they're going to accept credits because of the way students had to learn over the last year and will be learning, it seems, for a while?
Just from my understanding, the College Board made some accommodations last spring, with the testing, with the exam that was administered at that point. As of this year, College Board has not made any adjustments to their course time frame or their adjustment. So it's actually very fortunate that we've been back in school as much as we have, because a lot of students are going to be at a disadvantage across the country who had not been back in school quite as much. Now, College Board did just release some information in January to help teachers catch up from some students that are there. But as of right now, and I think they're getting some pressure from colleges, to be honest, in terms of making sure those standards are there and that's happening. So as of right now, College Board's not making any adjustments. Might something happen in terms of in the future? Perhaps. I believe the College Board is still considering an at-home exam just because students are still remote and there's still that possibility. But they're not changing any of the course framework at this point.
And you haven't heard a lot of noise from colleges about saying, well, we're not going to give credits. There was some talk of that in the past before this pandemic thing ever happened. And then this happened. And so I wondered if they're going to sort of use that as an excuse and so take away kind of, I still think AP classes are valuable for other reasons, but I'm just curious because some people do take them with the intent only of getting that's the biggest piece for them is to have that college credit.
Right. I hadn't heard anything recently about that, but again, the College Board does have an audit that they do every year. We have to renew our courses and we have to submit a syllabus because I think colleges want to make sure that if a high school is offering a course, it is accepted by the College Board and is accepted by the colleges. So, some colleges just accept the exam itself because, they want to have that as their basis. But, the audit, I think, has really been a really good thing to show that if we offer this course, we're providing the resources, we're providing the materials, we're providing the expertise in order for that course to run properly. Other questions I can answer?
is everybody okay then with the AP Psychology textbook?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Everyone, thank you.
All right. And then our next 3 textbooks are biology textbooks with Mrs. Megan Valletta. And we'll start with Biology 1 for grades 9 and 10.
Mrs. Walters, if I could just introduce Mrs. Valletta. This is her first meeting She has been with us a little longer, but this is the first time that she will be presenting tonight. So we are thrilled to have her as our science supervisor. And Megan, I will pull up, let's see if I will pull up your first book.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and finally meet everybody over Zoom, hopefully soon in person.
Yes.
So I do have 3 books tonight, one for academic biology, one for honors, and one for AP. Dr. Sy, did you say you're going to pull up the?
That is what I'm trying to do as we speak. I am. Hold on one second. I have it here. I'm trying to get it up.
Okay, take your time. I can get started while you're pulling that up. For academic biology, the current resource that teachers have in the classroom has a copyright date of 2004. And so that was the first resource that I wanted to make sure we talked about updating this evening. We are currently working on the biology curriculum revision. So we're looking for a resource that the teachers can implement and also the students can utilize in the classroom.
Can you see it?
Yes, now I see it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So you can keep scrolling down. Just the goals of the course aren't changing. The outline and really the foundation of the course is staying the same, but we're looking at making a more robust program for the academic students and really making sure that they have something that allows them to have interaction with labs, interactions with their teachers, and also takes them through the steps of critical thinking and looking at how, you know, the real world science and how it connects to them in the classroom. If you scroll down, I do have an update, Dr. Scheid, I told you about today for the price, and we can come back to that at the end. Or should I talk about it now?
You can talk about it now.
Okay, so
it was good news, Megan.
It is good
It
news.
was really like what? Not even an hour ago we got that news.
Right. So since the 3 textbooks are from the same publisher that I'm proposing, I reached out again just asking, can you give us a better deal? And she was able to take about $4,000 off the cost. So it's an updated cost of $30,383.31. And she just took that off of the academic just to tie in and give us a 1 lump sum. So I'm requesting a textbook bundle similar to what Mr. Viverku talked about, getting the hardback resource if a student needs that access to that, and also providing that as a classroom set, and then also providing the 6-year digital text. The digital text also comes with a platform that students can use and teachers can use, similar to a learning management system, where they can interact and they can go in there to complete some of their work as well. You can scroll down a little bit. Okay, and it's the same criteria that Mr. Viverku talked about. We looked at, really, does it cover all the topics in detail? Is it able to provide resources, not only just looking at the concept, but taking it into case studies and reading and visualizations? And so the committee and myself thought that this book really was well-rounded and did a nice job of engaging the students in multiple ways, and also addressing common misconceptions that we see in biology. And I think that's it for academic. Any questions about the Miller-Levine academic textbook?
So I'm a little confused by the content here. You have 4 textbooks that are all listed. So you're asking for approval of all of them? Is that correct?
Are you talking about the entire agenda?
I'm confused as to which one I was trying to follow along in all the attachments. Mrs. Walters, help me.
Sorry,
help me.
I'm on the current one, Miller-Levine biology, for the academic biology course.
It's item B on your agenda.
Item B. Okay, so under that, there's B1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh,
You know, I'll ask the silly questions.
so B1 is the proposal, B2 is the rubric.
Okay, right. And so 4 is also a rubric. And so is 3.
Ah,
There are rubrics. They evaluated 3 different textbooks. So there is a rubric for each of the textbooks, and they're only recommending the one that had the highest score on the rubric.
Okay, so number 4 is the because I was getting thrown off by these other rubrics with the really low scores.
Oh.
So while I was trying to absorb what was being said. And so B4 is the rubric for the textbook that you're proposing. Is that correct?
It looks right.
Okay.
Is that right, Megan?
I don't have the
Oh,
the
it's Miller and
itemized-
Levine, right?
It's Miller and Levine, correct?
It's Miller and Levine, yeah.
Okay, so B1 and B4 in the public content is really the applicable files for this approval request. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That should just be explained to the public as well, because I'm sure if people go through this, they'll ask why we're approving these two textbooks with this low scoring rubric. And I understand now that the last rubric with the really high scores is the one that we're actually looking at to approve.
Okay, so that's a good point, Dr. Thompson. We did put all the rubrics, we sent those to you so that
Okay.
in terms of clarification for that last one. So that last one is the one that was chosen based on the higher score.
Okay, great. I was looking at those other ones going, I don't think that these apply. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Just showing what the teachers in that group of, with Megan looked at.
And Mrs. Belletta, is it similar to what Mr. Ververka told us, that I believe you had 3 teachers and yourself who were evaluating in this case, 3 textbooks? Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. So for the academic book, 3 academic biology teachers reviewed, as well as myself.
Once and I'll just add, even with Keith, with any of them, once the teams get together and they go through that work, then they come to my office. And then Dr. Bolton and I look at all of that as well. So we've seen the textbooks and reviewed the rubrics and such. I think I went through every single page of that AP Psych book. I was just enthralled. But it does come to my office and then to Dr. Bolton's office when they're finished. So Megan, are we at bio honors?
Yes, if there's no questions about Miller and Levine.
No, I'm good.
We'll move on to the next one then.
Okay, perfect. The honors biology textbook, we needed, the reason why that we were reviewing the textbook is because the current book has been discontinued and no longer available for us. So we were using Concepts in Biology through McGraw-Hill. And so the team came to me saying that, you know, the company is not continuing this book. We would really like to reevaluate and look at some other resources. So we looked at 3 textbooks again. And you can scroll down, Dr. Scheid. Again, just rewriting and revamping the curriculum, but the foundation still remains the same. For the honors biology book, the textbook bundle, we would request 50 of those, again, to allow for the resource if a student requests one or for in-class usage. And then again, the 6-year digital e-text with an online interactive resource available to students and teachers. If you scroll down a little bit more. We were really looking to see if it offered a wide range of learning experiences, again, focusing on critical thinking. And Dr. Scheid and I talked about this a little bit. We were really looking at diversity within the science text as well, not only in the images, but in the discussion of scientists and their contributions to research and investigation. So again, this one was our highest ranking, and the content really does a nice job of connecting to real world examples and connecting also to other content areas, not just within sciences, but really showing students how math is related and how you can pull in interdisciplinary work in science.
There were stark differences in terms of, because we evaluate on bias, and we have expanded the criteria on how we evaluate for bias, but it was interesting, right, Mrs. Belletta, in terms of what you noticed and the team noticed within the textbooks.
It really was when you go through with a fine like you're looking for everything. You're looking for the images, you're looking for the discussion. So these 3 we're really confident about.
And so the one that you're recommending is the Inquiry into Life, 16th edition, correct?
The one that, this is Campbell, Concepts and Connections, 10th edition.
10th edition, yeah.
Oh, boy, so confused.
No.
So if I go to the rubric, I want to look at the rubric separately
Sure.
from your presentation.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for, there's concepts and applications on C2 and concepts and connections on C3, and then inquiry into life on C4. Which rubric am I looking for?
You're looking for Concepts and Connections.
C3.
Just
Three.
C3.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, I'm looking at your different scoring. And by the way, we didn't thank you for getting that discount in the bundling. So appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Oh, of course.
I just had a question. Sorry, Dr. Thompson, did you have anything more you wanted to say? Okay. About the quantity of the hard copy books, because typically it's 30 for a classroom set. And I noticed on this proposal and also for the AP textbook, there's more. Is that just because of the number of kids of the students that are enrolled in those courses, or is it just the way that it works out with the digital? I just was curious.
So they wouldn't, actually it's fewer than 30 per class because it's for different teachers. So they were only requesting about 15 hard copies per teacher, if that makes sense.
I figured it had to do with the amount of students enrolled. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any other questions on that textbook for the honors course? No, and then we'll move on to the AP biology textbook. And can we also just clarify before we get started which attachment goes with it? I don't know if Dr. Bolton or Dr. Scheid have that. I don't have the email pulled up, so I just have all the hard copies in front of me.
Campbell 12th edition. Campbell 12th.
Yes, AP Campbell 12th edition.
Campbell.
It is number 2.
Yeah.
Well, 2 is an at a glance. Which rubric is it?
It's the first rubric.
So D3? Yeah, D3. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's D3.
Okay, so for the AP biology course, we currently have the 9th edition of the Campbell Biology AP edition with a copyright date of 2011. The College Board requirement is for it to be within 10 years, so we need to update for next school year. And so we are recommending AP or Campbell Biology AP edition 12th for next school year. You'll see that this rubric is similar to Mr. Viverka's. It's just taking the AP course from the College Board at a glance. So Dr. Scheid, you can scroll down through the makeup of the AP course. And keep going down. For this, we're requesting 60 textbook bundles, so the hard editions and also the digital text. And the number is a little bit greater here because the AP students the numbers that request a book are a little bit higher than the normal classroom. Also the 6-year e-text and then the AP test prep workbook that is designed to go congruent with the College Board curriculum. So you can see the total cost there. And the Campbell AP biology book is really one of the gold standards for a biology course. This is a college level course and really does a nice job of looking at science skill sets and allowing students to analyze data and critically think. And it really takes everything and brings the big picture to students. This book did an excellent job of highlighting the diversity in the scientific field. Every chapter starts with someone who is real, who is doing the work from a different country, from a different background, and was just a very impressive book to look at both scientifically and looking at the diversity that's included.
I have a question about your rubric, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you go over to your rubric under the section for assessment, you have a 0 for providing strategies for teachers to identify common student errors and misconceptions. And your scoring explanation is there does not seem to be anywhere that common misunderstandings are addressed. How will that be overcome then?
Sure. So typically, students at the AP level have already gone through the foundational biology, so they already understand those misunderstandings or misconceptions, but the teachers will also embed in the curriculum a chance to identify and address those misconceptions.
And I had a quick question about the test, the AP test prep workbook. Are those consumables? Do we have to buy more of those, or are they?
They are consumables, yes.
Okay, so then do we just buy more through the science budget if we need more for the students over the next 6 years or so? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else, Mrs. Cullen?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know that we had done the survey, I should say, of the kids, the students with the AP, and it came out to 78% of them preferred to have a hard copy textbook. And have we ever run into a problem where any teachers felt like there weren't enough textbooks for other classes, for the honors or for the academic level? Are we making sure that every student who needs that physical book, like so many people do, they can get it, right? Or do we need to get more?
Yeah, so I spoke with Dr. Scheid about that. She told me about Dr. Dormer's study last school year. So I brought it to the committee, and they were confident that they had, within AP biology anyway, they hadn't had a request from students to have more than they were recommending to purchase.
And Mrs. Cullen, overall, since Dr. Dormer did that survey, that has been at the forefront of our thinking. Teachers understand that. If we needed more, the supervisors would come to me. So we would, whoops, you're muted.
I thought I had myself unmuted. So that's on all levels, AP, honors, academic. They
That would
feel
be
comfortable in coming and saying, we really need more books.
They would come to the
Okay.
supervisor.
All right.
They would, and the supervisors would come to me.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
I just have a really minor comment on the rubric. So the rubric for the AP that we're looking at lists the grade level as 9. So just a little tweak for the public. This is 11, 12, right?
Yes, I apologize about that. I'll make sure that's updated.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that it's clear for the public looking at the information.
I think
Thank
that it
you,
might have
Mr.
been
Kraus.
flip-flopped with on the honors biology presentation. I saw that it said 11th and 12th. So maybe they just got flip-flopped because honors biology one
Either
should be.
that or copy paste, yeah.
Also, I just wanted to, I mean, I just think it's important to explain the other 0 on the rubric. It makes sense to me, but if you could, for public record, explain that second 0, which is on the last page of the, the last page of the rubric, because you explained the first one under assessment, but if you could address the technology and why it would score 0.
Sure. Let's see, am I on mute? No. This textbook does not have a LMS system, so we're not purchasing a communication system. So teachers and students would use Canvas in place of that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions, or Dr. Bolton, Dr. Scheid, anything else you'd like to add about the textbooks?
Dr. Scheid, I just like to always say when we're talking about spending money on these types of things, that these funds will be budgeted as part of the curriculum department for next year, and those funds will be worked into the budget. Is that correct?
Yes, it's part of program improvement and textbook replacement. So the initial purchases come through the curriculum department. And then as Mrs. Belletta and Mr. Baverka said, if we ever needed another 1 or 2 or whatever, there's funds at the high school so that they would be able to purchase supplemental ones.
Thank you.
So you'll see that on the program improvement budget with the textbook replacement budget.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Valletta, for all your hard work, bringing that to the board. If we don't have any other questions, I guess we're okay moving this forward to the board meeting. And do we have any other public comment that came in, Dr. Bolton?
Yes, there is one public comment that has come in during the curriculum meeting. It is from Amy Fine of Hilltown. And she says, what kind of bias in the science textbooks were being referred to? Religious bias? So Mrs. Valletta, during your presentation for one of the biology textbook, you were talking about how the biases were evident as you were looking through the 3 textbooks. Do you have that information handy, or do you need to check with your notes and get back to Ms. Fine about the bias you were referring to?
I'll have to go back and check through the notes, and then I can bring it back to the board.
Great. We'll send something to the board as well as to Ms. Fine. I have her email address. Okay. All right. That is the only other public comment, Mrs. Walters.
Okay, thank you. And that is the end of the curriculum meeting. Our next meeting is on March 1st. We are adjourned.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
for
Good
your
night.
Good
presentations.
night.
Yep. Good night, everyone.